here is Robert Hagemann. Robert is the CMO at Aether Diamonds. He's a 40 under 40 award winner, an award-winning entrepreneur, an angel investor, and a board advisor. Today, Robert will be presenting The Future is a Luxury, translating technology into consumer interest. Welcome, Robert, and take it away.
Thank you so much. So let me just share my screen here and make sure that we can see everything side by side. Okay, and I'm actually going to hide myself. So yeah, thank you everyone for taking the time to visit today for this presentation. I think one of the things that's so exciting for me in the world that we're living is that we have innovation and technology coming at us from a rapid pace all of the time. And what's really exciting, but can be intimidating a lot of the time, is when technology is so new, we don't know what to do with it, or we don't know how to talk about it, or we don't know how to receive it. And so my presentation today is really going to focus on how we translate that technology and the magnitude of that technology into consumer interest. As we're trying to sell our products and services as companies to our potential buyers out there in the world, we need to know how to talk about them and how to talk to those consumers. So that's something that we're going to talk through today, and hopefully we'll get a little bit more clarity around that. But before we dive in, just to give a little bit of background about myself so you know who I am. As was introduced, I'm an angel investor, a CMO, and I've been in marketing for the large majority of my career. I'm currently one of the co-founders and the chief marketing officer at Aether Diamonds. You can learn a little bit more about us at etherdiamonds.com or find us on social at Aether Diamonds. I'll also be using our company as an example for how we translate technology into consumer interest as we go through this presentation. But a little bit more about my background. So I've worked with over 20 luxury brands across multiple industries categories, focusing on high tech, but also focusing on fashion, jewelry, personal care, food and beverage, cannabis. And so I have a wide range of experience in how to actually translate what it is that these companies are doing into consumer interest. I also had a stint in my career as a salesperson for an artificial intelligence startup, and really learned on the front lines there what it takes to sell something like that when you're a consumer or when your end buyer doesn't really understand the concept or the mechanics of what it is you're trying to sell to them. Additionally, I am an advisor to over 10 startups across multiple industries, and I'm an angel investor. And so not only am I a serial entrepreneur, but I know what it's like to look into these companies from the outside in rather than the inside out, and to really see how they're operating and how they're talking and positioning themselves in the marketplace. So to start off, the key question here is what's the real role of technology, right? Because we can talk about technology as this massive esoteric thing, or we can experience it in our own lives in one specific instance. But the real role of it is what's important here as we're trying to translate that into consumer interest. And so for me, the definition of technology, or the real role of it, is to allow us to be and to do better than we previously could. Fairly simple, nothing too complex there, but there's a lot of important nuance in that. And the us there in that sentence is humanity, humankind, us as human beings. And that brings its own crazy amount of complexity to the equation. And then better, how do we define that? And for me, we see technology as a lever for performance, for achievement, and responsibility. Responsibility to ourselves, to the world around us, to the people around us. And so this then gives us a really nice context for how we want to talk about selling technology. And the real problem with selling technology is that by nature, as human beings, we are super resistant to change. We like what exists presently. There are a handful of us out there in the world who are constantly craving new, constantly craving change. But the large majority of us, we like what is familiar. We like what is safe. New concepts can be interesting to us, but not something that we feel super confident about until we fully understand it, or at least we feel like we fully understand it. And uncertainty is definitely something that we don't like as human beings. And the past year plus can tell you that very easily. And so if you have 10 people in a room and you ask those 10 people, raise your hand if you like ambiguity, my guess is that you're going to get at least 9 people without their hand raised. That one person who does like ambiguity is going to be that crazy entrepreneur who goes out and does things differently and likes getting their hands dirty and getting a little bit messy with stuff. But for the most part, the people around us and the people that we're trying to sell to don't like change. They don't like new concepts and they don't like uncertainty. And the rub here is that technological innovation is always new. It's oftentimes complex. It usually can be quite cumbersome from an actual standpoint, a doing of the technology or a building of the technology standpoint. And it's usually confusing to people who don't understand it. The perfect example that I like to use for this is cryptocurrency. The majority of us know sort of what cryptocurrency is right now, but we don't actually know what it is. And the majority of people out there are not investing in crypto. It's still a very small minority of people who are investing in cryptocurrency. And so the cumbersomeness, the confusion around it, the complexity around it really makes it hard to be able to pitch that to people and to get them to buy it. And so to give a little bit more context behind this, there's something that's called Rogers bell curve. And so this was developed a number of years ago as a model that shows the rate at which consumers will accept and take on a new innovation. And so you'll see in the chart here, you have your innovators very early on, who are the small minority of people who are really excited to take on a new innovation and adopt it and use it in their lives. Those are the people who raise their hands, who say, I like ambiguity. Those are the ones who are super comfortable and excited about change. And then this segues into your early adopters who give you a little bit more of a bulk on that, and then early majority. And so that early portion, right before the peak of that hill, are really going to be the people who are a little bit more tech savvy, tech enabled. But again, what's really interesting about this model, and this model was presented to me over 10 years ago when I was in business school, this is a little bit outdated. And the reason for that is that it doesn't adequately address the complexity and the velocity of technological innovation right now. This curve really talks about innovation as a whole. And so it can be something as simple as innovation in the type of laundry detergent or the ingredients in a specific laundry detergent. And there are going to be people out there who automatically, yes, want to sign up for that, want the newest thing, but it will take time for the majority of people to adopt that. When technology, real heavy tech is involved, this curve shifts a little bit. And so that's what we're seeing here. And these are just two examples. There are a lot of different ways to model out or show graphically how technology is adopted. But on the left, we have sort of the Big Bang model, which is developed by Larry Downs and Paul Nunez. And with this, the description here is that technology really can be adopted rapidly after a small ramp up of exposure. And there are certain companies and certain technologies for which this works really, really well. And we've seen this in a couple of different industries. With AR and VR, we've seen this a lot. And so the connectivity of that has been adopted really quickly. But one of the important things that I would note here on the left is I've advised a lot of companies and I've been pitched a lot of companies in my angel investing capacity. And sometimes the timing just doesn't work out. Either the technology is too advanced for the time when it's trying to be sold, or you get this very large peak of demand early on, and you're not able to keep up with production and you can't supply that demand. And so you bottom out and you oftentimes miss a lot of opportunity. On the right here is more accurate to what a lot of the technology we're seeing today is. And this would be, I would imagine, relevant for cryptocurrency. So it's the reluctant adoption with mass effect later on. And so you have this very long, slow period of time leading in with some small peaks leading into when there is mass adoption. But what's important to note on this is that consumer reluctance and the complexity of the technology will shift that peak further and further to the right. Or I guess, sorry, I should be pointing this way since I'm on camera, but further and further to the right as you increase the complexity and the novelty of that. So that peak is a function of it. And so what's important for us to know as technological salespeople, marketers, company leaders is to really understand how complex our technology is and how reluctant consumers are going to be to that. And so, as I mentioned, I'm the CMO of Aether Diamonds. What we do is we are the first in the world to create diamonds out of air, which that technology in and of itself, fairly complex. But I'm going to use Aether as an introductory example for what it is we're talking about and how to translate it into consumer interest. So this is a quick snapshot of our process, very high level overview, but it sort of shows the complexity in a very high level way of what we do. So our first step is to capture carbon dioxide from the air. So diamonds are just crystalline carbon, pure carbon. CO2, carbon dioxide, has that carbon atom in it. And so what we want to do, and what we do is we pull carbon dioxide out of the air, effectively removing pollution from the atmosphere. And we take that carbon dioxide, and then in step 2, we process it into raw materials. So we want to get that raw material that's suitable for putting it into our diamond reactor in step 3, and growing those diamonds into reactors. And then 4 is really just cutting, polishing, very traditional sort of diamond industry steps. But there's a lot of complexity around every single step of this process. You can imagine steps 1 and steps 2 and steps 3, all of them have multi-layers beneath them and heavy technology that allows us to do all of these things. I don't understand the majority of it. That's why we have engineers and we have our chief technology officer who really runs this from a scientific standpoint for us here. But the key is I need to understand it enough, and I need to understand the consumer enough to be able to translate that. And so this is where a lot of companies will fall short, is the technology gap. So you have your consumer on the left here, you have you, the company, as on the right over here, and in between is what I call the chasm of comprehension. And all of that very heavy technological understanding of how something works or how something happens. You are never going to be able to completely communicate that and completely have your consumers understand all of the heavy tech aspects of what it is you're doing. And so we have to figure out a way to cross that chasm. And the way that we do that is by storytelling. We need to be able to tell a powerful story and use shared language as a way of bridging the gap of that chasm of comprehension. We need to bridge the gap of understanding for our consumers. And our complex technology is never going to be fully understood by our consumers. I will never fully understand how my iPhone works. All I understand is that it works for me and it does the things that I need it to do. And so that sort of leads us into how we talk about it. So this all seems really complex, but it doesn't have to be. Technology is complex. How we talk about it doesn't have to be complex. So let's remember again the role of technology. And this is to allow us to be and to do better than we previously could. And what's really important here is the us again. So without the human element, technology is irrelevant. If we don't have people around to use, buy, run the technology that we develop, it sort of sits there. We're not in a situation yet where technology is completely autonomous and can replicate itself. But even if it could, what's the point of it? So we as humans benefit from this. And without us, technology is irrelevant. So we need to communicate about it like human beings, and we need to communicate to people like they are human beings. So the real customer perspective on anything, whether it is a pen, whether it is a computer, whether it is green energy technology, the real question that every consumer is going to have is, what's in it for me? And people do not buy products, they buy ideas. They buy the idea of what that product can allow them to do. They buy the idea of what it is they can accomplish or be seen as by buying that product or that service. And so that's really important for us to talk about as we go through and try to sell this technology. And so another thing that I see a lot of tech companies getting tripped up with is trying to talk about the features of their products. Features don't sell, benefits sell. And that really is the crux of the matter when we're trying to sell technology of any kind, whether it's super heavy tech or light tech. The benefit to that consumer, if we look at the thermostat on the left, the Ecobee thermostat, you can come home to a house that is cool enough during the summer or warm enough during the winter while still saving on your energy bill while you're not at home or while you're asleep at night. Same thing with an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. The benefits of that sell, the features don't. And so the real big secret to selling technology, ironically, is not to talk about technology. It's to talk to people about what they can do with that technology and what they can do as human beings. So we really need to tell a story and connect emotionally with our customer and our consumer. How do they feel currently? How do we want them to feel? And so what we have to do is be very clever about how we translate that tech into customer needs and desires. And we have to put that in the right language. So again, here's an example about how we talk about Aether, diamonds made from air. What I like to say internally here is that we hook with the intro and we excite with the story. So the intro concept is we're the world's first diamonds alchemized from air. Diamonds from air is a very strange concept, but it's intriguing. We like to use the word alchemize because alchemy is sort of what we're doing. We're taking something from nothing. And we then communicate the benefit of what we do. So for every 1 carat of diamond that we sell, that offsets the average person's carbon footprint for 1.25 years. That's a tangible benefit that you can see and experience and understand. And then we link that story or those emotions and values to a story. And so we say that this diamond is a symbol of a better future for you, your person, and the planet. You know that diamonds predominantly are known for engagement rings and wedding rings. That union, that commitment is something that can be then magnified to an even greater extent when we think about the benefit of the planet and the world around us. So very quickly, our results so far with this, we just launched back in December with Aether Diamonds. In the first few months, we had coverage from Vogue, Fast Company, Forbes, Scientific American, multiple outlets because of the message that we were getting across and the way we were getting it across. We had over 750,000 of orders in the first week alone of our brand launch and $3 million of orders in the first 5 months. And so that for me is something that's proof positive that if you talk about something in the right way, you can get the results that you want. And this works for any technology. This isn't specific to diamonds. This isn't specific to any certain type of category. It applies to all technological innovations. You just need to understand the consumer and tell the right story. And that understanding the consumer part is really what's most important here. You need to understand what it is they want, what it is they need, and how they can benefit from it. And so the takeaways here, really, step one, relate to consumers' existing understandings and behaviors. What do they know about the technology in this market or about the products or industry to begin with? Get a good baseline, get a good understanding of them. Then tell them the benefits and the results of your product or service that it can offer them today. Don't make this a tomorrow thing just yet, but also paint them a picture of tomorrow and how your technology will allow them to live a better future. All of that combined will allow you to bridge that gap, that chasm of comprehension, and tell a story and use language that allows your consumers to really understand the value and the benefits of your technology. So I think I'm just at time. So I thank you all for your time and attention. If you want to reach out to me, this is my email right here, just bob@etherdiamonds.com. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about what we do, social media at etherdiamonds and etherdiamonds.com.
Wow, that was fascinating. Brilliant talk. I learned so much, and I'm sure everyone else did too. So I'm sure you're going to be hearing from a lot of people. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Robert.